Hello. The story I'm going to tell you today takes place in the city of Daegu, located in southeastern South Korea. This city sits in a basin surrounded by mountain ranges. Daegu is the fourth largest city in South Korea and is often called the backbone of the nation. In the Danu district, west of the city, there's a mountain named Waryong, standing at 299.1 meters. The mountain earned its name because its shape resembles a dragon lying down. At its peak, there's an observation deck offering a panoramic view of Daegu's stunning beauty. Since climbing Waryong isn't too challenging, many people visit during holidays and festivals. However, it was on this mountain that an event occurred, one that shook the entire nation of South Korea. 5 boys went up the mountain to play and then vanished without a trace. This incident became one of the 3 most mysterious unsolved cases in South Korea, widely known as the Frog Boys disappearance case. Let's rewind time to March 26, 1991, to uncover the details of this haunting event. It was Tuesday, March 26, 1991. Although it wasn't a weekend, it was a public holiday because local elections were being held across South Korea. For kids, a day off from school meant pure joy. At 8:20 a.m., 6 boys gathered to play together. Kim Dong-sik, 9 years old. Park Chan-in, 10 years old. Kim Jong-sik, 11 years old. Jo Ho-jong, 12 years old. Gu Chan, 13 years old. And Kim Tae-hoon, 9 years old. They were all students from grades 3 to 6 at Seoul Elementary School in Daegu, located at the foot of Waryong Mountain. Their homes were in nearby villages. That morning, they were playing near Jo Ho-jong's house when a young tenant stepped out, complaining that the kids were too noisy and telling them to go somewhere else. The boys huddled together, discussing where to go next. Someone suggested heading to nearby Waryong Mountain to catch fire salamanders, amphibians that live in forests and mountains, laying 10 to 60 eggs at a time. After agreeing on their destination, the group split up to grab supplies from home and inform their families. Of the 6, Kim Tae-hoon told his parents about the plan, but they forbade him from going, deeming it too far. Reluctantly, he stayed behind. The other 5 boys, some carrying empty boxes for eggs, others wielding sticks, headed toward Waryong Mountain, laughing and chatting along the way. The morning passed quickly, and soon it was noon. The boys' parents, noticing their kids hadn't returned, assumed they were caught up in play and didn't think much of it. But by 6:30 p.m., as Kim Jong-sik's mother busied herself with chores, an uneasy feeling crept in. She stepped outside, peering down the quiet street, but there was no sign of her son. It was dark now, and though the kids had been to Waryong before and weren't new to playing there, they should have been home by then. Growing more anxious, she left the house to check with the other boys' families. Along the way, she found a crowd buzzing with concern. 5 boys who'd gone up the mountain that morning still hadn't returned. The parents grabbed flashlights and rushed to Waryong, calling out their children's names, but no response came. After searching for hours with no sign of the boys, they descended at 7:50 p.m. and reported the disappearance to the police. The police, however, didn't act immediately. With the election underway, officers were deployed nationwide to maintain order. Since the boys had been missing for less than 24 hours, the duty officer dismissed the parents' worries, suggesting the kids would turn up soon. Unwilling to wait, the parents returned to the mountain with some kind neighbors. Rain began to fall that evening, complicating the search as they trudged through the mud with flashlights and raincoats. By 3 a.m., exhausted and empty-handed, they gave up for the night. The next day, over 300 people, including police and military personnel, were mobilized to comb Waryong Mountain. Helicopters joined the effort that afternoon, but the 5 boys remained missing. Meanwhile, police interviewed locals near Waryong. Jo Ho-jong's older brother told them that around 9 a.m., while biking home past the mountain's base, he'd seen his brother and the 4 others heading up. He asked where they were going, and Jo Ho-jong cheerfully replied they were hunting fire salamanders. His brother told him to come home for lunch, then left. A woman reported that at 9:30 a.m., after voting, she saw 5 kids with boxes and sticks walking toward Waryong, debating whether they'd make it back for lunch. She didn't pay much attention at the time. Another student, Hun Sung-hun, from Seal Elementary, said he and some friends were also on Waryong that morning, searching for salamanders. Around 11:30 a.m., near a graveyard on the mountain, he heard a terrifying scream from afar, followed by another 10 seconds later. The cries didn't sound like playful shouts, and, too scared to investigate, he fled. His parents believed it might have been the victim's cries for help, but police dismissed it. Another witness claimed to have seen the 5 boys at the mountain's entrance around noon, so the screams were chalked up to birds or wildlife. A 42-year-old local also reported seeing 5 kids playing near a pond by the village at 4:30 p.m., though memory-based accounts like these can be unreliable and often skewed the investigation. Police initially suspected the boys had run away after a family dispute and gotten lost. The parents rejected this, insisting their households were harmonious with no reason for the kids to flee. The oldest, Gu Chan, was 13, and the youngest, Kim Dong-sik, was 9, hardly an age group likely to orchestrate a mass runaway. The investigation then shifted to the possibility of a personal grudge. Perhaps someone the families knew held a vendetta. But after digging into their backgrounds, police found the families were honest, peaceful people with no enemies. Nothing serious enough to warrant harming innocent kids. Next, they considered abduction. 3 days later, on March 29th, Kim Dong-sik's father and uncle received calls from an unknown man, sounding about 30 years old, claiming he'd kidnapped the boys and demanding $4 million won, roughly $3,500 today, to be brought to Waryong Mountain. Kim Jong-sik's father, Mr. Kim Cheel, scrambled to gather the money and race to the spot, but no one showed. The caller never contacted them again. The tenant who'd shooed the boys away felt immense guilt, blaming himself for their disappearance. Locals criticized the police for not acting swiftly, missing a critical window. News of the case spread slowly at first, confined to the village and nearby areas, but soon exploded nationally. Early reports mistakenly said the boys went to catch frogs, earning them the nickname Frog Boys. In truth, they were after fire salamanders, but the name stuck for simplicity. On April 1st, 6 days after the disappearance, the parents printed 50,000 flyers and distributed them at train stations, bus stops, and crowded public spots across Daegu. They offered a $2 million reward for useful tips. The case grew so dire that then President Roh Tae-woo took notice, ordering police to spare no effort. Under his directive, police and military scoured Waryong and its surroundings meticulously. Near the mountain lies a reservoir where a child once drowned, prompting speculation the boys might have gone there to play and met a tragic end. Rescuers drained the lake, but found nothing. As public attention surged, the boys' families' phone numbers leaked, and police installed wiretaps. Countless calls flooded in, some with children's voices followed by hang-ups, but most were pranks. In August 1992, an anonymous man claimed the Frog Boys were buried under a building's basement in Gyeongsangbuk-do. When pressed for details, he hung up. Police searched the site, a distinctive high-rise near the boys' homes, but found nothing, deeming it another hoax. Months of fruitless searching left the parents desperate, though police clung to hope the boys might still be alive, perhaps kidnapped or trafficked. The reward rose to 42 million won. The families quit their jobs, bought a truck, and drove across Daegu, and even the country, handing out flyers. Businesses pitched in, printing the boys' faces on phone cards, food packaging, and TV ads. A giant hot air balloon even bore their images. By November 1992, police had fielded nearly 1,000 calls, mostly false leads. That same month, a film inspired by the case, Come Back, Frog Boys, premiered, reigniting national outrage. With no breakthroughs, wild rumors spread. North Korean spies abducted them. Leprosy patients took them for a cure, or even aliens snatched them. Police chased these leads, but found nothing, sometimes clashing with locals during probes. By 1995, for years in, they used computers to age progress the boys' faces, printing over 2 million new flyers. Still, only fake tips came. Desperate, police even consulted shamans. As years passed, the case faded, and the parents returned to work to survive. In January 1996, Professor Kim Kwon-il, a criminal psychology expert from Korea's prestigious Institute of Science and Technology, claimed Kim Chil, Kim Dong-sik's father, killed the boys and buried them under his house. Furious, Kim Chil denied it, insisting he'd never harm his son. Given the Institute's reputation, police took the accusation seriously. Though devastated, Kim Chil allowed them to excavate his home. In January 1996, guided by Professor Kim, police tore apart Kim Chil's house as curious onlookers gathered. After over an hour, the place was a wreck, but no bodies were found. The crowd fell silent. Kim Chil erupted, shouting, "Losing my son broke me. I've been trying to survive, and now someone accuses me of burying him here? It's absurd." The public slammed Professor Kim for his baseless theory, which reopened old wounds for Kim Chil's family. He was fired from the Institute and prosecuted for slander, yet he doubled down, publishing a book, "The Children Didn't Go to the Mountain." Cleared but shattered, Kim Chil spiraled into alcoholism and died of liver cancer in October 2001, never seeing his son again. Then, on September 26, 2002, 11 and a half years after the disappearance, a break came. A 60-year-old man hiking Waryong to collect chestnuts poked the ground with his stick and uncovered what looked like buried clothes. Digging further, he found a human skull. The day before, police had ignored a similar call about bones on the mountain, assuming it was another prank after years of false alarms. But this second report spurred action. At a shallow pit, they found 4 skeletons stacked atop each other, a large rock pinning them down. Nearby, 150 meters away, lay a 5th. All were teenage remains. 3 skulls bore gaping holes. The clothes, though detached and knotted together, were identified by the families as what the boys wore that fateful day. For over a decade, the parents had clung to hope their sons were alive somewhere. Now they were crushed. Police theorized the boys stayed on the mountain late, got lost, tied their jackets into a rope to stick together, and froze to death in the cold. The families rejected this. Their homes were just below Waryong, a familiar playground for the boys. The mountain wasn't high. Even at night, village lights were visible. The burial site was only 3 kilometers from home, 500 meters from the nearest village. Getting lost seemed implausible. At the scene, police found over 10 bullet casings. A firing range for the 50th Infantry Brigade, 2nd Division, sat nearby, leading to speculation the boys were accidentally shot. But this was dismissed. 5 simultaneous stray bullets were unlikely, and the skull wounds didn't match gunshot trauma. The bullets were likely just litter the boys picked up. Media coverage of the excavation drew outrage for the police's sloppy handling, digging with shovels, bagging bones carelessly, and testing only 1 skeleton before concluding hypothermia. Kyungpook National University's forensics team re-examined the remains. Park Chan-in and Jo Ho-jong's bones showed no clear injuries, making their cause of death uncertain. Gu Chan, Kim Dong-sik, and Kim Jong-sik had multiple skull fractures. Kim Dong-sik's left arm was broken. Gu Chan, the oldest, had 25 wounds. Exact time of death was unclear, but it likely occurred the day they vanished. The team identified a possible weapon, a pointed, flattened tool used to scrape solder, common among welders, though not widely carried. Pinpointing a suspect with this alone was near impossible. Police reconstructed the crime. The boys spread out on Waryong to hunt salamanders when a masked attacker struck. Gu Chan, 13, fought back, suffering the most blows. Kim Dong-sik ran, but was caught, raising his arm to block a fatal head strike. Kim Jong-sik fled, tearing his sleeve in a struggle, but was also struck down. The killer then subdued Park Chan-in and Jo Ho-jong, tying their clothes into a rope to strangle them, leaving no bone marks. Afterward, he buried them under a rock, perhaps to hide them or mark the spot. The killer might have returned to Waryong or lived nearby. The weapons suggested planning, yet the randomness of 5 victims implied spontaneity. The boys only decided to go that morning, and killing 5 at once was risky, not the hallmark of targeted attack. The theory sparked debate. Missing hair and teeth, slow to decompose, hinted the burial site might not be the original crime scene. The clothes' unusual knotting wasn't typical, either. Why hadn't the bodies been found during earlier sweeps? Police offered no clear answer. Perhaps they were buried deep, surfacing after years of erosion, or moved there post-search. Waryong was remote then. Maybe the boys crossed a deranged ex-con or serial killer. Some tied it to the election, suggesting a political ploy gone wrong. A nearby man-made cave, barely big enough for one, showed signs of habitation, but dated items suggested it was used years after 1991. By March 2006, 15 years later, the statute of limitations expired under South Korean law then, meaning the killer couldn't be prosecuted even if caught. A new rumor emerged. A Waryong family with a mentally challenged son and a hunting dog were to blame. The dog, usually chained, was freed that day for cage repairs, escaped, and attacked the boys. Fearing exposure, the family killed them and relocated. Though guilt allegedly drove a confession, no evidence backed this tale. In February 2011, another film, Children, revived public interest. By 2015, police officially closed the case and discussion faded. In 2021, a social media post speculated a Seoul elementary teacher, familiar with Waryong and able to discipline kids, was the culprit. Reporters debunked it as baseless. A year later, another post claimed a metal caliper, wielded by a local high schooler, was the weapon. Though calipers could cause similar wounds, a 30 centimeters model, bulky and conspicuous, was unlikely. This too fizzled. The Frog Boys case remains a scar on South Korea's psyche, exposing security gaps and child safety failures. It joins the Waryong serial murders and Lee Hyung-ho's abduction as the nation's top unsolved mysteries. While Waryong was cracked after 33 years, the Frog Boys linger unresolved. Advances in forensics offer hope the truth may one day emerge. As a criminal psychology expert, I see this case as a tragic collision of opportunity and chaos. The killer likely acted impulsively, driven by rage or panic, yet showed chilling calculation in concealing the crime. The choice of a niche tool hints at a specific trade, perhaps a welder or laborer, while the randomness suggests no prior connection to the victims. The enduring mystery lies in human unpredictability, a reminder that even the most meticulous searches can miss the mark when motive and method defy logic. Goodbye, and until next time.